In this lesson, I want to take a look at the inner structure of an object in JavaScript. You could think of a JavaScript object as a collection of properties. Each property is a name which has some piece of data associated with it. Now, we've seen lots of properties throughout this course. It turns out, in fact, that you can add properties to an object just by writing the object name, then a dot, then a property name which you can choose, and an equals sign to assign some value to the property. Now, here I've created an object called O, and object is the base type of all JavaScript objects, and I've given it two properties, A, which has the value 1, and B, which has the value, and this is a string value, 2. And I can add a property by putting its name as a string inside square brackets like this. So that's the two ways to define properties. One is using simple dot notation, the other is within square brackets, as I've done for C, and I've assigned the value 3. Now, the square bracket index form here might remind you of the syntax that we've used many times before for indexing into a normal, that is a sequential, array. And here's an example. Here I've got an array called A, and to assign 300 to the index 2 in the array, I just put A and open square brackets, put the index number inside the square brackets, and then equals 300. So the only real difference between this sort of normal sequential array and this other sort of array up here is that the sequential array has an intrinsic numeric index, whereas the indexes for the object, that's this type of array up here, are property names. So you can think of an object as being a sort of collection that is indexed by a series of names or identifiers instead of by an ordered series of numbers. And in JavaScript, this sort of collection is called an associative array. Now, if you're familiar with other programming languages, you probably call these, or structures similar to these, something like a hash or a dictionary. Now, this sort of collection can be compared in a way with a paper-bound dictionary, sort of thing that you'd look up words in, where each word provides a key or an index to a definition. And in programming terms, we call the indexing word the key, and the key is associated with some sort of value. And so you can say that an associative array, or a hash, or a dictionary, no matter what you call this sort of structure, is a list of key-value pairs. Now look at the loop I've written to display the keys and values in this object, that is, in this associative array. Now, this should look familiar because this is a for-in loop, which I looked at briefly in the last step. But a for-in loop really becomes much more valuable when you are iterating over this sort of associative array. So this is how it works. The loop variable is assigned a key on each turn through the loop. That is, the key is the thing that indexes into the associative array. And then I can use the key to get the value that's associated with it. So here I display the key, and here I use the key to index into the object, into the associative array, just as I would use a number to index into a normal sequential array when I want to find the value stored at that point, that is, in this case, associated with this key. Let's look at it in the browser, and well, here you can see that in the second example, I've used the for-in loop to iterate through an array, and the key is just the position of each item in the array from 0, 1, and 2. And when I've used a for-in loop with the associative array, that is with the object, then the key is the key property, A, B, or C, and the associated value is shown alongside when I use that key to index into the object. Now, associative arrays are very useful things to use. They are not only used to maintain the properties of objects, but they can be used to store collections of all sorts of key value pairs. And because they're so useful, they have their own literal syntax. Now, literal syntax is something that lets you write a piece of data without having to create an object first. For example, when you want to write a string literal, you just put some characters between quotation marks. And when you want to write an array literal, you use the syntax with square brackets and the items divided up by commas. With an object literal or an associative array, the syntax is like this, with curly brackets containing key value pairs divided by commas. So here I've got 3 items, that's 3 key value pairs. The first key is the integer 1 and its value is the string 1. The second key is the integer 2 and its value is the string 2. And the key here is not an integer, it's a string, and I can mix the different types of keys in a single object or associative array, and its value is the string 3 value. Now, sometimes you'll want to delete elements from an associative array. Well, how do you do that? Here's an example. It's quite simple. I use the special delete operator. And again, I've used the 2 types of syntax available here. One is the property type of syntax, that's O.1 with the dot notation, and the other is the one that looks like indexing into an array with the square brackets and the key shown between the square brackets. So both of those delete statements look into the object associative array. They look for the specified key, that's 1 here and 3 here, and they delete the key value pair at that index. And if I show you this, here's the page itself. So, first of all, keys and values. That button calls this method here. So this creates a new object. It puts into it 3 items with the keys A, B and C and the values 1, 2 and 3. And then it uses a for in loop just to display them. And that's the results, nothing surprising there. The next one, show object literal key values. Well, here I've got an object literal with, again, the keys 1, 2 and 3 key and the values 1, 2 and 3 value, all as strings. And once more I've used a for in loop to display the keys and the values. And that's the results of this. Again, nothing very surprising. So now let's look at how I delete these items. So I've got here this method which creates an object literal with 4 items with the keys 1, 2, 3, 4 and the strings 1 value, 2 value, 3 value and 4 value as the associated values. I then have a for in loop that displays all the keys and values, and having done that I then try to delete the item given by key 1 and the item given by key 3. And then I try and display the object values again, keys and values, and finally I try to display the item given by key 3, but that's one of the ones that I've deleted. So let's see this. So first I display the associative array, that's the original object with all the keys 1, 2, 3, 4 and the associated values. Then I try to delete the items given by keys 1 and 3, and now I display the associative array again. Well, there's only 2 and 4 because those other items have been deleted. And finally, I try to display the item given by key 3, but that's one of the ones that was deleted. And that returns the special value undefined. So when I try to access something in an associative array that doesn't exist, the special value undefined is returned.